the other thing that's also having a significant influence on just the headline unemployment rate is the fact that you saw nearly 500,000 people drop out of the labour force during the last month. So what that's done is artificially kept the unemployment rate down much lower than it otherwise would have been. If we'd actually kept all of those people within the labour force in that calculation, the unemployment rate would be something like 9.6%. But importantly, the number that we're most interested in is actually the number of hours worked, because it's the hours worked that go directly into economic activity and understanding what does that ultimately mean to the growth of the Australian economy.
And when it comes to looking out the other side of it, there are concerns that we will see more people staying on unemployment benefits, and so there is that disincentive to get back into the workforce if you're someone who's making more money on JobKeeper than you were in your actual employment. Do you think there's going to have to be some kind of mechanism from the government to be forcing people back into the workplace?
Look, in terms of a mechanism of forcing people back into the workplace, it's about making sure that there's jobs there available for people to return to. But this issue of exactly what you've identified, that the difference between now the job seeker supplement for unemployment benefits and the wages that you can now get in some parts of the economy is not that great. So that's in fact going to be a much bigger policy issue for the government to be dealing with than necessarily how it works out how to wind down the JobKeeper program. It's really about ensuring that there's enough incentive to get people back into the workplace rather than looking to receive some form of welfare payment.
When we look at just the broader economic performance, we had the update from the Treasurer this week, which was somewhat overshadowed by his coughing fit, but it did show that in a global comparison, at least, we are faring better than many other countries, and it seems like JobKeeper came through at the right time. Do you think that some of those figures are better than they could have been?
Oh, look, absolutely. And there's no doubt that the suite of policies that's been put in place, both at the federal government and state government levels, have done enormous help to ensure the continuity of the Australian economy going forward, despite the fact that we're having such a sharp contraction in employment, which will see a sharp contraction in economic activity. But on the whole, what you're seeing is that the leadership that's been undertaken at a political level, at all levels of government here, also combined with the Monetary Authority, the Reserve Bank, and also regulators, has been a suite of policies that's been very good. Now, you've seen quite a dislocated response in many jurisdictions around the world, and that's going to flow through in terms of how their economic outcomes pan out as well. So, in fact, you're seeing high levels of unemployment within the United States. You're seeing high levels of unemployment within Canada. But that also goes to show that those economies are being much more impacted by the underlying cause of this crisis, which is, in fact, the health pandemic that we're trying to deal with.
And do you think there is any risk to the idea that a lot of companies have been kept going because of JobKeeper, and then once that runs out, they won't actually be able to restart? We've heard a lot of small businesses say that the startup costs, again, could be crippling for them, and so there could be a second wave of unemployment coming through.
Look, that is a risk. The thing to also recognise is that adopting smart business practices where you're in fact building up your own cash buffers at the moment while you're using the JobKeeper payment to help with subsidise your own wages bill is something that all businesses should look to be doing. So in fact, what they've got is a 6-month period where they're getting support from the government to enable them to build up a cash buffer once that JobKeeper payment starts to wind down. Now, you still need to undertake, and all businesses need to undertake good leadership, good management in this time of crisis, and recognise that these support mechanisms that are in place by a government are only there on a temporary basis.